Welcome, welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome.
Good evening.
If you're comfortable, you feel free to turn on your camera. It'd be a great idea if you can share with us. If you are a LaKea member, put that in the chat. And if you work for the county, please share with us what department you work for or are assigned to. We are
Oh,
expecting a couple of more folks to join us, but we're going to go ahead and get started because I understand that the Dodgers are playing. Folks got one ear over here, one ear over there. Hi, Edwin. It's good to see
Hi,
you.
Delora. Nice to see you. And hello to everybody. I'm with the
hi.
LA County Department of Public Health.
Edwin, are you still you're no longer the president, right?
No, not anymore. Yes, I didn't seek a second term anymore.
Perfect.
I'm
We got
concentrating.
DCFS in the house. We have CSSD. I'm with the Aging and Disabilities Department now. Mina, where are you? Where are you, Mina? Would you like to unmute yourself and share? No worries. So, on the behalf of the Los Angeles County African American Employees Association, I want to thank you all for joining us. This is one of many more to come of our financial literacy series. As many of you are aware, identity theft, fraud, and scams are increasing. So we thought that it would be very, very beneficial to our members, to the community, and the county family just to pull together or partner with in collaboration First City Credit Union to give some information on how we can protect ourselves. We are hoping to have a very engaging conversation this evening, and we are wanting you to, at any point of the presentation, feel free to raise your hand, your virtual hand, and we will ask that you will acknowledge your hand, let you come off mute to ask your question. Now, if you're not comfortable with that, you can also place your questions regarding anything that is being presented in the chat. In the chat. Now, we also have the opportunity to have a couple of resources made available to us by our presenter tonight, Ms. Gina Garcia with First
Yes.
City Credit Union, and they're already available in the chat. But don't worry if you don't have the ability at this time to download it, we will send it out to everyone via email. I won't go through a long introduction about who Gina is because we're so grateful to have her and we've shared her bio on our Eventbrite. So at this time, I would like to turn you into the hands of Gina. And
Thank
Gina,
you.
you are such a joy to be here with us tonight. We're so grateful that you're here, and we are looking forward to a very engaging conversation and to learn a lot.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here this evening. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to present. My name is Gina Garcia. I'm with First City Credit Union. I'm the Assistant Vice President of Business Development, and one of my favorite things in my role is the opportunity to collaborate with associations such as LASEA and provide financial wellness content and information. And today's presentation in observation with cybersecurity month, we decided to present on identity theft, fraud, and scams. The content is in partnership with GreenPath Financial Wellness, which is a national nonprofit that centers their work specifically providing resources to communities and to individuals to help improve your financial health and your wellness. And this is a free community give back that First City Credit Union pays on behalf of our membership and the associations that we work with to provide this information. So I hope you are excited to learn more about this concept. And again, as previously mentioned, if you have any questions, we can stop along the way. So please don't hesitate to stop me as we move through the content. So we will begin. Let me click here. So again, today we're going to be covering identity theft, fraud, and scams. We're going to be looking at what they actually are. We are also going to be spending a few moments talking a bit more about elderly fraud specifically. We will be sharing steps to take if you've experienced identity theft, as well as things you can do to prevent identity theft, fraud, and scams. So we will just dive right into tonight's agenda. So you may have used the terms identity theft, fraud, and scams interchangeably. While they're related, there are some slight differences between these three things. And let's start by defining the key terms and going through some examples to get some clarity on these concepts. So first one we're going to look at is identity theft. Now, according to the Federal Trade Commission, identity theft is when someone uses your personal or financial information without your permission. This could include information such as your name, your social security number, your credit card, and bank account numbers. An identity thief could use this information to do a variety of things, such as applying for a credit card, opening new accounts in your names, even filing for unemployment claims or tax refunds, using your identity, but making sure that the money goes to the accounts that they actually have access to. Now, fraud. Fraud, on the other hand, is when someone tries to trick you to get your personal information and money. And according to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, uh, while this information, while there's various forms of identity theft, a key difference is that fraud often involves unauthorized of existing accounts versus opening new accounts in your name. So identity theft, again, is with the intent to open new accounts. Fraud, on the other hand, is utilizing your existing accounts for unauthorized usage. Some examples of unauthorized purchases may be used through your debit card, your credit card, and perhaps forged checks. It's important, as we mentioned, to identify what identity theft and what fraud is. But in the space that we're at, in the credit union space, it's also equally important to understand what fraud is not. And we're going to go over some examples. Although when experiencing these types of unauthorized transactions, they can be very unfortunate, frustrating in some cases, violating. These examples are actually not actually fraud. So let's look at the first one. First, when you're giving someone permission to use your debit card, for example, or your credit card or account information, and then they end up using more than you expected or in a way you didn't intend or agree to, this would actually not be fraud. This is frustrating and very unfortunate, but if authorization was provided to the individual to use your card, this is typically not considered fraud because you knowingly gave them the use, even though they mishandled that usage. Another example would be not canceling a subscription or free trial before they charge your account. If your card information was entered when you signed up, that provides authorization for them to charge you as agreed, meaning this is not considered fraud. Sometimes companies are willing to refund the money to you, which is worth exploring. Um, but the fraud claim, should charges come through, would typically not be applicable in this scenario. So it's always important with these subscriptions or any kind of trial offer that you cancel the reoccurring right away. Another example would be if someone is authorized to use your account, such as a joint owner or an authorized user. This can sometimes happen when elderly parents add their adult child to their account, or in some cases, in a divorce. If you share account access with someone and you expect they may try to use the funds or ring up charges, explore steps you can take to remove them from the account or separate funds to an individual account. In examples of divorce, you may actually need to speak with the lawyer about who you're required to, how you're required to handle this. We see this quite often. Again, at the credit union, we see this when an elderly parent will give the adult child access to help, and then at a later date, they come and check their account, and the funds in the account are much less than they intended. And although it's a really hard conversation to have with them, once they have added that individual is now a joint owner and can withdraw the funds in any way that they choose to. So it's always important when you're adding someone to an account, be sure that you're watching that account very closely. One final example, although unfortunate, and we see this, oh, it's so sad, but when the kiddos take start making charges on their parents' card because many of their devices require a payment information when you're registering the device. But if you keep that payment source on the device, the kiddo starts to make purchases on the in purchase apps. And a lot of times that will happen and parents will not know about it till it's too late. And again, being in the credit union, we've seen this quite a bit. One time I had a mother who was on a fixed income, a single mother, and her son had charged up to like $700 on charges. And she was really, really disheartened because she needed those funds and she wanted to dispute it, but there was no way to dispute those charges because she had authorized it at the time of registering uh, the card onto the device. So that's definitely something families want to be sure that they are checking those devices and removing any payment sources on them to avoid that type of transaction. But again, in all these scenarios, those would technically not be fraud. Scams. So let's talk one let's talk about scams in terms of what the intent is. So for scammers, they are intentionally deceptive and trying to trick you into actually providing them with information and money. Um, a key difference between fraud and scams is that the scam is often harder to recover loss from because there typically some type of authorization provided. Um, and that authorization provided is through deceptive ways. So examples include the romance scam. This is when someone starts a fake relationship, usually online, to build trust, and then eventually starts asking for money. An example of this that you might have seen in the media, the actress Jennifer Lewis, who plays the grandmother on the show Blackish, in 2020, she was actually a victim of a romance scam, which she was scammed out of $50,000 for someone who she thought she was in love with, but he was actually a con man, and he said he needed the funds to help fund a tech business that didn't exist. So whether you're an average individual just working at the county, all the way to someone as her, who's a very prominent celebrity, these scammers are very, very skilled, and we are all susceptible if we're not being protecting ourselves to hopefully prevent it. And luckily, in her case, she came out publicly to share it because she wanted to help individuals avoid this happening to them. Scam can also happen through the use of phishing to try to get people to provide personal information that is then used to steal their identity or to commit fraud. So scammers have gotten really, really clever, and each and every day they show that they're getting better at what they do. There's total fraud rings, and these fraud rings, we get notification at the credit union of different things that these fraud rings are trying to, perpetrate against our members, and we get notification through our compliance team, where we can see trends happening from the East Coast and moving their way here to the West Coast. So we try to be very vigilant, and this is one of these acts, by providing workshops like this where we want to try and help educate individuals to prevent them. But as mentioned, these fraudsters, it's a full-time job, and they're very clever and find means in order to trick hardworking individuals. So they will use a variety of methods to try to steal your information, including but not limited to emails, text messages, phone calls, ransomware, and more. But tonight we're going to review a couple of examples. So let me click over here. So you'll see here in this example, many of us have received emails that come through, and we're moving so much of our purchasing towards online purchases. So we receive emails for shipments that we might be expecting. So that is a common area that fraudsters will use to hopefully trick an individual. In this scenario, you can see, even though it says UPS, it's actually not the UPS logo. It's a little hard to see, but if you look at the from email address, it's actually not a UPS domain. Um, this example as well, the package number in the email also doesn't match the package number in the subject line. So all of these are clues when you're seeing these emails. Number one, you want to be sure not to click anything, but you want to also be mindful of what things you might have ordered in recent times, because you don't want to mistake one of these phishing emails for something that is actually legitimate. There are several buttons and links throughout this email, and the goal here, and they hope, is that you're going to click on it. Chances are the website that was entered and will download something onto your computer unknowingly and get you to type in your personal information. And then lastly, if we were to do a search at the bottom of that address, which is in Florida, it actually comes up to this, which is a location that definitely doesn't look like a UPS facility. So all of these are clues and different areas. We want to be very mindful of any phishing emails that might be coming your way. We'll look at one last example here. And in the red, it's highlighting. So as you can see here, it has a it has the Gmail logo, but it's actually an old logo. This is very typical, where the wording and the sentence structure is pretty odd. It just doesn't seem legitimate. And then the from address is suspicious. The links, they look like they want you to click. They definitely just don't look right. But in this particular scenario, they're trying to create a sense of urgency in the mail. And that's very common. they use the red coloring. It's like scan now, there's something wrong. They're hoping that the individual is going to be distracted or just, okay, like maybe this is legitimate and that you might click onto it. But that's what the fraudster is intending, that they want you to click. And it's actually all with the intent to create some type of urgency. So that is definitely a red flag. So in summary, you want to just be aware there's a lot of dishonest people out there who are willing to do some really extreme things to take advantage of hardworking, honest people, whether stealing someone's identity, committing fraud, or scamming someone. And as technology has advanced, it is more important than ever that we are vigilant to avoid falling victim. There's a lot of ways someone might attempt to access your personal information in hard-earned funds. And so being vigilant is the key. So as we move on, I mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about elder fraud. We want to spend time because it's so important and it's so prevalent uh, uh, that our elders are being exposed to scammers who want to prey on them and target them specifically. While this is referred to elder fraud, most examples fall under the definition of actual scams because the effort are typically centered around getting the elderly individual to provide information and send money themselves. There's a perception that older people have more money in the bank, so they're targeted specifically, and people believe that elders may be more uh, susceptible to scams. So whether you consider yourself an elder or love and take care of an elder, here are some things that the National Council of Aging share as common examples of elder fraud to be aware of and on guard from. So here's some commonly used tactics. So in this, again, back, because I work for a credit union, I've seen all of these different examples, and it's really sad because, again, these fraudsters are so good, they will convince and create a lot of fear in elderly members, and they are either just not guided or the fraudster is just so convincing. But one of the top ones that we see is the sweepstakes scam. And this is when someone tells a person that they won a prize. This could be some kind of lottery, publisher clearinghouse. The alleged winner is told that they must send something, perhaps cash, a gift card, or money order. And this is they describe it as an upfront cost to cover processing fees or even in order to claim their prize. After the alleged upfront costs are paid, the scammer will take the money and then run with no winnings ever materializing. In some cases, the person may even be sent the winnings up front in the form of a check or a money order. And then the person that deposits the funds, they will send the fees or taxes, which is what the scammer will tell them. And just as the funds are deposited, the check bounces and then the individual is left out of the money. We've seen individuals at the credit union like out upwards of like $2,500 due to this scam. They will receive maybe a check for like $10,000. They will be convinced that they need to send $2,500 for these so-called fees and taxes. And between the time the check is being processed and they get access to the first 2,500, then the check bounces and that individual is left holding the bag, which is very difficult, especially if the individual is living on a fixed income, because now they're held liable for those funds. Another area is tech support scams, which are a way of taking advantage of an older person perceived to have lack of knowledge or skills when it comes to computers. A message may appear on their personal device displaying a phone number for them to call for technical support. If the person calls, they may be asked to pay a fee for help or ask to grant the scammer to authorization to remote into their computer. If the individual gives them that access, the main key for them is to find access to the files, information saved on their phone, and many a times a full takeover on their mobile banking or their online banking, which is a really sad situation when we see that. So definitely these are really important scams we want to be aware of so we can help those that we love or ourselves to prevent ever giving authorization to such groups. And then we have the third common tactic is called the grandparent scam. And this one is heartbreaking. This is a scenario when a scammer calls and pretends to be an individual's grandchild. They'll ask in a very urgent sense for the grandparent to help them, maybe get out of jail, pay their rent, something with extremely pressing to the individual. They fake being the grandchild and begging the grandparent to not tell anybody and claiming that maybe their parent would be angry with them for getting into the predicament and for calling to help get them out. In this scam, people again are asked to immediately send cash, gift cards, or any type of money transfer. Again, I've seen this very closely with one of our longtime member. She thought her grandson was taken to Mexico and they were asking for a ransom. She really, really, with all her heart, believed she was talking to her grandson. And then she was just in a frantic state. And luckily, we were able to contact the joint owner on her account to help her, uh, you know, gather herself to realize that it was actually a fraudster impersonating her grandson. So it's really sad based off of what we see, but we're so proud of those moments when we're able to help prevent these scammers from taking advantage of our members. And then lastly, we have scammers who will impersonate various government agencies such as an IRS, Social Security Administration, or Medicare in efforts to demand various payments. Again, we have that same theme, pressing urgency, pressuring the individual to provide personal information, and then they use that information and steal their identity. So this is a very common scam, and it's what they do is they can also change the caller ID and it'll read the government agency's contact information. So they are very good at what they do. This is 100% what they do for a living is taking advantage of individuals, and they take advantage of the technology that is available to also perpetrate the fraud or scam.
Gina, before we move from that screen,
Yes.
because I'm very, very concerned about the statistics and the data that I've seen related to elder fraud. I know that in our communities, some of us are in the sandwich generation where we are taking care of the business of our grandparents, some of us, and some also our parents. We have a uptick in parents with dementia and things of that nature, Alzheimer's at an all-time high. And it seems that what I was noticing is that the elder fraud, right, is getting off the charts.
Yes.
And by many of us being here, our county employees in some capacity, what do you suggest that we do to be able to help our loved ones that are in that state where they are entering into that elderly age, that may fall victim to some of this fraud? Any tips for us?
In today's chat, uh, the first article that's attached, it's protecting your loved ones from elder fraud, and it gives specific tips. in order to help, again, have the conversation, ways to protect them, and just to get guidance when it comes to this particular topic. And that's why we sort of, in today's presentation, we specifically pull out elderly fraud and bring great awareness towards this, because it's so prevalent, and we want to do the best we can in order to protect them. So just conversations like this, again, knowing the resources, again, with GreenPath Financial Wellness, whether you bank with First City Credit Union, as we come to a close in today's presentation, whether you bank with this or not, this is a free resource to you, that you can contact them specifically where they can help provide true guidance when it comes to this particular area. And on our website, we have a link, a co-branded link with GreenPath, and there's continuous dialogue on this co-branded website about resources, additional webinars that help to keep this top of mind to protect our loved ones. I hope that sort of helps.
That does, but I do want to ask before we go on,
Sure.
is there anyone here have questions or any concerns or anything about the slide that we're looking at now before we move forward? You can raise your virtual hand. We will call on you. So you can unmute or you can place it in the chat. We are monitoring. We'll give you a moment.
I don't have a question, just a comment. I have heard of all of those scams for the elderly that you were talking about, especially like the grandparent one. And usually a grandparent is like very concerned if they say they're your grandchild or something. And usually it does throw you off because they'll go like, grandma. And you kind of think it is your grandchild, because I know it happened to a person that I know. And it was like, but she was pretty smart. She was like, nope, don't have nothing for you, grandson.
Yeah.
So basically, she didn't give anything up, but it was funny that they did try it.
Yeah, they try it, and in my experience with it, the member, longtime member we had, and we knew the grandson because he used to help her. She really believed it. She was just in tears, and she was on the phone, and she was scared to give us the phone to talk to him because she really believed that he was trapped and he was in trouble. So we were just lucky enough to get in touch with her loved one to help her, and he ended up coming down to pick her up and just to prove to her, because she was not believing us at first. We just, but given the nature as a financial institution, we try to do our due diligence as well to help. So when we see something, we can help to try and prevent some of this as well. But unfortunately, the fraudsters will also try to guide the member away from their financial institution, or to do things sort of like in the shadows, because they know we'll try and step in and try to help. So again, back to the handout today, some of the things that they mention is, again, monitoring the accounts. They go into appointing a financial power of attorney that can help them if they can't manage their own finances, designate a trusted contact. So hopefully in today's handout, that will help provide some additional support.
Thank you. I have noticed, I work for the Aging and Disabilities Department, and I see that there are a lot of financial institutions, investigators, filing reports, APS reports, on these types of issues, especially around our elders. So for those of us that are on the line, let's go ahead and see what we could do to enter into that conversation. Maybe Thanksgiving is a good day for that conversation with our loved ones. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Moving on here, let me see. Okay, excuse me one second. So sometimes, despite it even taking careful precautions, identity theft, fraud, and scams can still occur. That is unfortunately a truth that many of us have seen or have experienced. And it can be scary, it can be frustrating, violating, just so many emotions for so many people, and really truly humiliating. But we want you to know that if you experience identity theft and fraud, you're not alone. And talking about it both to what signs to watch out for, steps to take as you recognize something might be not right. That's why we want to have these conversations. And again, as I mentioned, today's presentation content is coming from GreenPath Financial Wellness. And when we talk about resources, that is a resource that will be available again to you and is always available on our website. And you don't need to bank with First City Credit Union in order to take advantage of that. So we're going to start by looking at what some of the signs are to watch out for. So, number one, um, unusual charges and transactions, even if they're small. If you notice any unusual transactions on your account, you want to take it. Action immediately, even if it's a small charge. Sometimes scammers, they're going to try and push through very small charges like $1 or less to confirm that your card is active or what to confirm if the card is active or not. They hope that the charge is going to be small enough that it'll go undetected. That's number one. And they hope because it's small, you just might ignore it or be like, I'll come back to it. However, if the charge is not blocked or disputed, they then push out a larger charge that is going to hit your account at a later time. That's a very common one that we see. And those small charges, there's a reason it's happening. So you want to watch out for that. And then you might have where suddenly you stop receiving your bills. So at first, when you notice this, it might be like, oh, okay, my bills haven't come through, but it's important to know what bills you have coming through the mail, and which ones are coming through your email. It's always best to have most of your bills routing to your email because you want to avoid any mail being stolen from your mailbox. But if you realize you suddenly have stopped receiving any bills or statements, this can be a sign someone has gained access to your accounts. And what they do is they change your contact information with those creditors or any banks or credit cards you may have, because they don't want you to see any unauthorized charges. So if all of a sudden you're not, receiving that credit card statement, you want to do some research because you might be victim where they changed your contact information to avoid you noticing. On the flip side, if you start to see and receive credit cards in the mail that you didn't apply for, receiving these credit cards in the mail might be an indication that they have obtained your information or starting to apply for credit using your identity. You'll want to contact the creditor immediately to research and take action as needed if you receive any unexpected credit card in the mail. Again, in this one, fraudsters, again, full-time business, and they will still they'll steal your mail. I had an individual who came in and she had been targeted, and they were watching when she would leave home. They were filing for credit cards in her name, and they waited till she left, and then when they were watching her mail daily until they could receive the card. So they were still having the mail go to her home, but they were trying to capture the mail as she left. And then the Covina police had told her that her, along with several individuals in her neighborhood, had been targeted in the same way. So receiving those credit cards in the mail that you didn't apply for definitely is a red flag that your information has been stolen. So you'll want to do the necessary research. Um, then, if you start to apply for credit and then all of a sudden you're denied, if you know that you have good credit and good standing and there's all of a sudden an unexpected denial, you want to again do that research because there might be excessive inquiries and a run up on your credit. And now, when you're trying to apply for legitimate credit, uh, it could be again a red flag that a fraudster has taken your information, and there might be identity theft. So you'll want to dig deep into the denial reason with any lender to ensure that it's not a result of identity theft. And then lastly, we have if you have been combing through your credit report after a credit denial or simply reviewing its accuracy, which we recommend that you do at least once a year, um, if not more, it can be done through this actual website. It's annualcreditreport.com. So there's a lot of credit monitoring programs, but they might have a fee, um, or they're trying to solicit new credit products. With this particular site, this is a government site that gives all consumers the right to get your credit for free so that you can review it for its accuracy. It's a consumer right to have that access. Now, it will not have your FICO score. That portion of it is not provided. That's when you would typically you would pay to get your FICO score. The usage of annualcreditreport.com is specific to ensure that you are monitoring your credit for accuracy and for protection from identity theft. So you'll want to be sure that you notice the spelling, because if you just search free credit report, you might get a credit monitoring program versus this government site that you have access to getting your credit report as a consumer right. Okay. So if you notice any of these things, what do we do now? So first off, we want to take a deep breath. Like we mentioned, experiencing identity theft, fraud, and scams can bring on a lot of emotions. It's not your fault. You're not alone, and it's going to be okay. And there's steps in order to take to get back on track. So if you're experiencing any identity theft, and then someone's using your information and accounts in your name, it's recommended that you file a report with the Federal Trade Commission at identitytheft.gov. You'd want to go to that report and they'll gather some information for you and walk you through steps to take and what additional authorities need to be alerted. So there's an actual government site here that can help you with next steps. And then whether you're experiencing identity theft, fraud, or scams, you want to alert your financial institution and all your creditors immediately. If someone has gained unauthorized access to your account or personal information, you will likely need to close out accounts or open new ones. The creditor will guide you in that process and determine what's the best means and recommendation for you. And you want to ask about additional security measures you can put in place of your account as well. So at the credit union, for example, if anybody's had identity theft, and even if the credit union's account has not been compromised, they will do the added measure of asking us to put a password on the account or add notes to create awareness should someone try to gain access to the account. And you may be instructed to also file a police report depending on the type of fraud that has occurred. And you're also encouraged to place a fraud alert or freeze your credit report by contacting the credit bureaus. So if you're not sure, there's 3 bureaus: TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. And a fraud alert lets anyone who pulls your credit know your information may have been compromised by fraud or identity theft. So they will need to take additional steps to confirm who you say you are. When you put a freeze on your credit, it prevents anybody from being able to access the account. So if you put a freeze, you have to remember to lift that freeze if you are trying to obtain any credit, because that includes you. So for example, if you came into the credit union and you have a freeze, and then you wanted to apply for some new credit, an auto loan, a credit card, anything that pulls a credit report, even though we identify you and we see your ID, the freeze is an actual freeze. we cannot move forward unless that freeze is lifted. So it's always important to know that when you have a freeze, it's a good idea to consider. It can be a little bit of an extra step when you want to obtain credit, but you'll know that it truly is a freeze. And the credit union or any other lender cannot extend credit unless that's removed or the steps that are taken in order to identify accordingly. And then lastly, if anybody gets a hold of your information, you want to change your passwords and enable multi-factor authentication on all of your accounts immediately. Enabling the multi-factor authentication means someone will be unable to hack into your account and change the password without having access to your phone or your email to confirm the request. So many of us might have seen that, when we're trying to change the password, then we will get an alert. So it's always important to have that multi-factor authentication. And we're almost to a close here. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a few tips to prevent identity theft, fraud, and scams. And unfortunately, there's no guaranteed way to ensure that you will be able to avoid this. Like we mentioned earlier, even the most vigilant people can still experience this. But just like a locked door doesn't prevent a criminal from breaking in, it slows down it can slow them down and give more time to notice what's happening and react quickly before damage is done. So we just want to do our best to try to prevent. So ways you can protect yourself. If someone reaches out to you, this is very important, whether it's by phone, email, or text, and if they're being very high pressured, urgent with their demands, pushy, that you take action without thinking it through, consider that a huge red flag. Um, very few things, any communication, especially from a financial institution, if it was government agency, no one's going to push you to demand for your personal information. It's very rare. That's almost never going to happen. And then not allow you to take the necessary time to validate the legitimacy of the request. So, as a general rule, never give your personal or financial information to anyone who you don't initiate the communication with. So for example, with the credit union's not going to call you directly and ask you to give them your member number, your name outward. They're not going to you're not going to receive an outward bound call asking for that information. When you call in, we are going to ask, what's your member number? Can you give us the last 4 digits of your social? We're going to try to identify you inward. But if there's anybody pressuring you with urgency, hang up the phone. And you could always call back and say, I got this really strange call. And you'll find it's probably someone trying to perpetrate fraud. Another way to protect yourself is to know and to look to stay up to date on common scams. And that's what we're kind of focusing on tonight. Having open conversation about financial health, different scams. This is a first step to really being sure that we're normalizing these conversations so we can stay ahead of it. Knowing what other people have experienced can also help you be alert of similar scams attempted. Sometimes scammers will target similar groups of people in similar areas, so keep an eye on the news for scams that might be popping up near you. And I mentioned that earlier today. We get notification here at the credit union of different scams that are making their way from coast to coast, so that we can help try to provide education to members ahead of time of what's sort of coming up. But you'd want to do the same, and you'll hear it either on the news and just by asking around when you're talking to folks. You can also install trusted software to protect devices from cyber scammers. Additionally, be sure to always create passwords for your devices. If you leave your computer, tablet, phone somewhere accidentally and it ends up in the wrong hands, a device password could be the difference between someone stealing your identity or not. Um, Similarly, keep an eye on websites you visit to ensure that they are secure. Look for the HTTPS at the front of the website URL. That's going to, it stands for secure and indicates websites that are usually additional security measures. And then when it comes to passwords, you want, when it comes to passwords, you want them to be unique passwords for every account. And that's really helpful. It can be a lot to remember all of the different passwords we have, but it's going to be important that you're not repeating passwords and you're using unique passwords for each account. The longer paraphrases instead of just simple passwords are helpful. And just think about things that are easy to remember for you, but hard and difficult for a hacker. So maybe like your favorite song, lyrics, movie quotes, TV show quotes, things that are sort of unique to you. Those can be helpful. And then it is extremely rare that a financial institution or creditor or government agency will reach out to you and ask you to provide your personal information unsolicited. So we mentioned that a little bit today. So assume that anyone initiating contacting you and asking you to provide information on the phone or text is suspicious, and do your due diligence before providing it. Any financial institution, government agency will be glad you are keeping your information safe and would encourage you to verify. So you definitely want to be aware of anybody unsolicited asking you information. And then we mentioned it earlier, but it's always important to keep an eye on your credit report and to watch for any unauthorized activity. And as previously mentioned, you can do that for free at annualcreditreport.com. As we wrap up here, one of the best things we tell folks is trust your instincts. Our instincts tell us a lot, and sometimes something seems weird or off, or anyone is truly trying to help, you will not be upset if you want to confirm legitimacy of the request. So you want to just hang up and call the company to verify the number that you have on your statement, your credit report, or your insurance card, just to validate anything that seems off. Your instincts really tell us a lot, and don't be afraid to ask questions and ask someone you trust for their opinion on the situation if something just doesn't feel right. It's better to be safe than sorry. And so we're coming to a close here. You can learn more about identity theft, fraud, and scams on how to prevent it by checking out our resource hub from our partners at GreenPath Financial Wellness. There's a QR code here. And again, with GreenPath, you can always access them on our website, and I'm going to go onto our co-branded website on the next slide, but there's just so much in regards to financial health and wellness, but they are a wonderful resource when it comes to safeguarding against identity theft and financial fraud. So we certainly encourage you to learn more. And then lastly, as I mentioned, First City Credit Union partners with GreenPath Financial Wellness. You can learn more about our partnership at greenpath.com/partner/FirstCityCU. At GreenPath Financial Wellness, they also offer free financial counseling, which is 100% confidential. They will not solicit you to do any necessary banking with First City Credit Union unless that's something you're interested in doing so. They are specifically a resource to speak to a financial wellness expert, and you can contact them at 877-337-3399. So I have it again back in the chat. We also have a handout for the work that GreenPath Financial Wellness offers. And there's also a fraud protection guide that is included in today's chat. Can you see that? Are you seeing the checklist?
No, we're actually seeing your last slide.
Okay. I can, I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment.
Okay.
I can come back to that. I'd love to share the material real quickly. Yeah. Give me just a moment. Sorry about that.
While she is pulling the checklist up, are there any questions, thoughts, best practices that you all that are here are practicing? Any tips from you all?
Question.
Sure.
So, this is to the um, Ms. Garcia. So, a lot of the scams are AI generated, especially the voice ones. So if that is the case, if someone has a copy of your grandson or someone's voice and they are calling you, does that mean someone has to have known that you have some money or something like that? And two, um, some of these banks, I know the bank that I have, they are asking for samples of your voice to verify who you are. It's like, well, isn't that kind of like baiting people into give your voice to get into your account, and AI can then use your account to get into the account?
That's a good question. I think everything involving AI, this is all, I think, sort of new to all of us. These are great concepts. I can't speak to it honestly on my myself because I too am learning just as other consumers are. I definitely can try and research more and ask more of our resources, like how does AI play a factor when we're thinking about identity theft? But definitely when it comes to like the grandparent example, the recommendation we've always heard and what we've said is just to encourage. It's a very rare case that that's actually going to be your grandchild. There's more probability that it's going to be a fraud. So we always say to just hang up, call a loved one, um, try to help, try to help and get validation on it, because what we've seen most of the time, it's always fraud. But how AI plays a factor, I mean, that's fraudsters are getting better and better at what they do. So that's definitely something we as consumers need to educate ourselves on. You're absolutely right. It's going to be a growing there's going to be some impact for sure. But me personally, I couldn't truly speak to it. I'm learning just like everybody else the impacts of the AI and how it will impact us when it comes to this particular space.
So maybe when you come back to us
Yeah.
in November the 30th, we'll have our next conversation related to financial literacy. Maybe we can
Yeah.
dig in by then.
We absolutely. Yeah, I welcome the opportunity to figure out ways to provide, resources to the audience that we're sharing with. So I'll definitely do my best to try and get more information. Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, we are.
Great. Okay, so let me just go through. Okay. So this is the article that was provided, the Financial Wellness Digest. Again, those tips for protecting loved ones from elder fraud, and some of the tips that that goes into, again, as it says, creating a game plan. So this will be a resource that you can peruse through to help get more prepared to help support our elder loved ones and ourselves. And then moving on, this is the brochure for GreenPath Financial Wellness. They are, again, a trusted partner that we partner with. They're a national nonprofit. and they offer free financial counseling. As I go to the second page, they can provide you resources for anything in regards to getting out of debt, saving money. They can help you with credit report review, whether that's in the space of building, rebuilding, or just safeguarding your credit. And then they can also help with planning for the future. So, in their free financial counseling, uh, they're trained counselors that can just help engage you as consumers in whatever financial journey you're at. And again, it's important to know that they will not solicit you to try and necessarily go get a loan at First City Credit Union or go do this or that. They'll only ask you, how did you hear about Green Path Financial Wellness? And you'll say, I heard it through First City Credit Union. And then they'll ask, is it okay for us to share with them our conversation today? You can 100% say, no, I want to keep it confidential. And they'll say, okay, not a problem. Now, in some scenarios, if an individual, for example, might be looking to get a bill consolidation loan, and maybe they've done that multiple times, we might, as a credit union, say, hey, we really want you to do a budgeting assessment with GreenPath Financial Wellness. Go through that process as a stipulation as we consider taking on the loan. So in that scenario, that individual will say, yes, you can please share with First City, because that's part of my loan stipulation that I do a budget assessment. But I just want to give you a little bit of a heads up on the experience. Should they ask, can we share with the credit union? You can 100% say no. I'm just looking to see how I can take advantage of the free financial counseling.
Gina,
And
before you go, can we step back one moment? Do you know if the sessions are virtual? We have 88 cities in this beautiful county of ours. Members are all over. Do we know if the Green Path services or sessions when they meet with are
yeah,
um,
they're out of state. They're nationwide. So I'm trying to think where I can't remember where their headquarters. I think it's in Oregon, or no, they're in Seattle. I think they're in Seattle. So when you're contacting them, you would be doing the session initially over the phone, and then I believe they can do virtual one-on-ones as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, but yeah, you wouldn't have to go into, for example, a First City Credit Union or an actual office for them. Yeah, they're nationwide. And again, it's important to note too, sometimes people get concerned. They think this is like a debt settlement company. They don't do debt settlement. When it comes to areas of assisting individuals with getting out of debt, they have what's called a debt management plan. And that specifically helps individuals get out of debt on a plan that they will help to manage if the individual if the individual is a good candidate and the individual wants support. But they will have at the end of the plan paid their entire debt off, and they work with creditors to help make concessions to bring down high interest or adjustment of the terms on their loans. But sometimes individuals get nervous that this is like a debt settlement company, and it's not. Okay. And
For the
then
plan for the future, nothing with retirement, right?
I'm sorry, what's that?
One of the last bullet there, plan for the future, nothing about retirement there. It seems that that's home buying process.
Yeah, so they have support when it comes to retirement. They're not like a financial advisor, but they can help when there's like when an individual is transitioning to potentially retire, in the form of like uh, budget, like reviewing your budget, planning for retirement. Sometimes that experience can be very overwhelming. Individuals continue to work because they don't think they'll be able to retire comfortably, or they're not sure where to begin. It's sometimes helpful to have an individual or an organization that can kind of separate from the emotion and work through the budgeting process so that the individual feels really confident. So they go through that process with them to ensure that adjustment of income will still meet their financial needs when they transition into retirement. So that's how they provide support when it comes to retirement.
Thank you. And
Mhm.
Lisa Frazier, your hand's raised.
Can I say something?
Lisa, did you want to unmute?
Can I say something?
Okay,
Oh,
there,
yes.
I was trying to get unmuted. What was that website? You said identity theft, and I didn't get the rest of it.
Oh, let me go back to that. Give me a second. I'm going to tell you right now.
And then
Yes,
Edwin, we will come to you.
I'm sorry. Let me do this. I'm going to grab it really quickly. I'm going to drop it in the chat. And there's also a phone number included for it. So let me go back. Well, how do I get into the chat? Sorry.
Mm.
Here we go. Here we go. There we go. It's identitytheft.gov, or the phone number is 877-438-4338.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yes.
Edwin?
Yes, Gina, I had a question because my brother got something in the mail and somebody used his name for unemployment.
Mm.
He already, I think, reported to the EDD, but he said something like an agency or website where he has to report that incident.
Yeah, I just added it to the chat. He can file an identity theft
That
report. Yeah, with identitytheft.gov, or
okay.
by calling 877-438-4338 to get more support.
And one more thing, my I got hacked, last December. I want to share this to everybody. My messenger got hacked, so somebody impersonated my cousin, and the hacker asked for the code from my email. So the hacker got access to my email and messenger and tried to charge my credit card 15,000. But I reported the incident, so it got blocked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it sounded so real because he was impersonating my cousin from Chicago. That, I'm your cousin. You can have that code in your email. So yeah, and I spoke to a bank representative. They told me it's advisable to change your password to 16 syllables, 16 digits. So I changed all my passwords to 16 digits, a minimum
Minimum,
16 to
yeah.
20, yeah, with symbols or whatever. So yeah, just wanted to share that if you have a password, make it 16 digits minimum.
Wow. Thank you for sharing, because I mean, it happens. It like you said, it sounded so real. And I think, again, just having conversations like this so we can learn from one another. And as you mentioned, um, in the slides, anytime somebody's asking for something like inbound, like a call's coming into you, it's always encouraged to hang up. And if you think that might be legitimate, then calling them back versus um, offering that information. But because of the like you said, it sounded so legitimate. It sounded like him. There's like this urgency. Our guard is down. That's what they're hoping in order to
Yeah,
perpetrate fraud on us, and it happens.
I don't know how he got access to my Western Union account because he charged my Western Union 15,000.
Wow.
I didn't give the password, but I had confirmation in my email from Western Union. He was able to charge Western Union 15,000. I don't know how he did it.
Wow.
There was no account
Yeah.
number. It's just a confirmation number that you made the transaction like $200 from Western Union, and he was able to charge the Western Union for 15,000. Yeah, I don't know how he
Wow.
did it. So
Oh,
even
gosh, yeah.
my email address is 16 digits minimum.
Minimum, yeah.
Minimum. Yeah.
That's a very great tip. I think we all could benefit from that. Sorry that that experience occurred with you, but thank you for sharing the 16.
Yeah, but not
Minimum.
the same. It shouldn't be the same.
Right.
You can
Different.
Yeah.
say, yeah, it has to be different. So I gave different 16-digit passwords. Like, you know, I met my friend in Los Angeles, and then at and symbol whatever. So it has to be different.
Mm-hmm. Different, yeah.
My password used to be the same, all of them. So I changed it differently. But I have to maintain a diary. I need to write it down. I might forget.
Mhm.
So I had to write it
Yeah.
down in a small pocketbook, my passwords, banks, and as well as social media.
Mhm. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
So as this is a call to action, I would ask everyone to take one moment and if you could share one thing that your takeaway, or you could come off mute to share your takeaway from the day, just this evening, just one takeaway, and then one thing you will do. One takeaway and one thing that you will do to protect yourself and your family from identity theft, fraud, and scams. Lisa, is that your hand from earlier or? One thing that you will do? Is there anything in
Oh,
the chat?
hello. Yeah. It's hard for me to get it. But anyway, I'm good. I'm glad to hear or find out about the Green Path. And they're a nonprofit. It's hard to know who to, excuse me, it's hard to know who to trust. And she mentioned that they're not debt.
Yeah. Debt settlement now.
Yeah, thank you, debt settlement, because I've
Yeah.
always heard bad things about them.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't mean to cut you off. We can go as we move into the series, we can definitely uh, learn about all of that because we have content that kind of goes over the different offerings and support. And again, but I always, when talking about GreenPath, want to emphasize they are not a debt settlement company because, as you mentioned, there's a lot of concerning things when it comes to credit and how it impacts your credit when working with debt settlement.
Exactly.
Well, okay. Well, if there's nothing else, on behalf of the association, we want to thank you, Gina, for sharing this information with us this evening. And I didn't see anyone put in there what they're gonna take away and what they're gonna do different. So I know that you'll save that for us for next time. Thank everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you here soon for our next installation of our financial literacy series, November the 30th. Take care. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delora. Thank you,
You
Gina.
too. Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you
good
so much.